It is the highest honor bestowed by Kentucky's electric cooperatives. Each year since 1982, the member-owned cooperatives have selected notable individuals who have helped enhance the image or quality of life in rural Kentucky. From educators to statesmen, journalists to civic leaders, they are our distinguished rural Kentuckians. In 2016, we honor a son of Hopkinsville and a longtime ally of Kentucky's electric cooperatives, Congressman Ed Whitfield.
The House will be in order.
For nearly 22 years, Ed Whitfield represented Kentucky's 1st congressional district.
Being in office, you're on the go all the time, so you don't do a lot of reflecting. But it is a sense of accomplishment that you were able to help in some small way.
Serving the people in 35 counties sprawling from the Missouri and Illinois borders on the west, as far east as Washington County, just south of Bardstown.
I remember one weekend we logged over 1,500 miles on my car, and I remember Mrs. Whitfield calling me saying, "Michael, are you trying to kill the congressman?"
It is a career in public life characterized by pragmatic leadership and accountability.
Certain things I'm pretty conservative, other things I'm sort of liberal, but the responsibility of a member of Congress is to look after the needs of his constituents. Of course, we're concerned about the state, we're concerned about the nation, but there are times when something might be good for the nation, and maybe you want to vote for that. But if it has too much harm to the 700,000 people you represent, then you've got to think about that a little bit.
Wayne Edward Whitfield was born May 25, 1943 in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. He spent much of his youth on this 29-acre farm at the southwest corner of Lafayette Road and Country Club Lane. At the time, his grandparents' home stood here.
Well, when I was growing up, first of all, I was an only child, but I had a lot of friends, and I spent a lot of time with my mother has 7 brothers and sisters, and they all lived on farms, and my father was in the railroad industry. But I spent a lot of time on farms, you know, driving tractors, raking hay, cutting tobacco, putting tobacco up in barns, and my first introduction to the coal industry, really accepting my father at the railroad because they hauled so much coal, was delivering these products to the coal mines, Peabody Coal Company, River Queen Mine in Muhlenberg County.
As Whitfield grew up in the early 1950s, his family moved back and forth from Hopkinsville to Evansville until settling in Madisonville when he was in the 6th grade. That's where he made a name for himself at Madisonville High School. A peek inside the Maroon yearbook, where he was senior class editor, shows the scholar-athlete was also named Most Friendly, alongside his friend Elaine Whitfield.
You know, the rural life it's so uncomplicated, and it's becoming more complicated today, but back then it was great. I enjoyed high school, enjoyed the sporting events, all the dances at the youth center, and hay rides and all that.
After graduating from the University of Kentucky, Whitfield began 6 years of service with the U.S. Army Reserve, attending Wesley Theological Seminary and American University before getting his law degree from UK in 1969.
Do I have to tell you how long I've known him? It's been a long time, decades, back in the 60s.
Among his law school classmates are Kentucky's Supreme Court Justice Bill Cunningham and former Hopkinsville Mayor Dan Kemp.
Just a nice guy all around.
That's the thing that strikes you probably the first about him. He's very sincere, very interested in things, very interested in problems, good sense of humor.
Whitfield came back to Hopkinsville to begin his legal career.
I'd see him in church here. He and I both attended First United Methodist Church here in Hopkinsville.
In 1973, Whitfield got his first taste of politics, serving 1 term in Frankfort as a Democratic state representative. Instead of running for re-election, he came back home to head his family's oil distributorship in Hopkinsville until 1979, when Whitfield joined Seaboard System Railroad, later CSX. As counsel to the railroad's president, he worked first in Florida before getting his first taste of Washington as a CSX lobbyist. Bill Cunningham would visit Whitfield's D.C. apartment.
Never had anything in his refrigerator except one old peach. It was the same peach every time I went up there, and it got blacker and more corroded every time I visited him. And I still razz Eddie about that peach.
In the early 1990s, while Whitfield was working as an attorney advisor to the chairman of the Interstate Commerce Commission, he called Cunningham in Kentucky one day, reaching him in Trigg County Circuit Court.
He said, "Bill, I'm thinking about running for Congress." I thought, okay. That was just after Tom Barlow had upset Carol Hubbard. I said, "That's great, Eddie." And he said, "As a Republican." I thought he was crazy.
The gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Whitfield, please come forward to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
The congressman was very popular in a district that did not favor his party. It was a district that was primarily heavily Democrat, but he would win by margins of over 70%. And the reason for that is that he was the congressman for everybody in the district, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent. And people felt that way about him.
Well, Ed was very good to work with. During my 8 years as mayor of Hopkinsville, I had the opportunity to have a lot of conversations with Ed, a lot of communications back and forth, and he was always very responsive, good to work with. It did everything that he could to help Hopkinsville and to help the 1st Congressional District. He was dependable and he was accessible. So he was good to work with, even though he's a Republican and I'm a Democrat. That didn't make any difference.
We're trying to send this money back to the state and say, bureaucrats in Washington are not close to the problem. The people in the state may be more innovative.
Ed's a wonderful person. I don't think he's your normal politician because he's helped so many people throughout the district with problems they couldn't solve themselves, but with Ed's help, they got them solved.
We don't expect anybody to build a new coal-powered plant right now with natural gas prices this low, but in the future, like in Europe, what they're discovering, it should be an option.
Ed Whitfield was the best choice to chair the Energy and Power Subcommittee.
Michigan Congressman Fred Upton is chairman of the House Energy and Commerce Committee. He served with Congressman Whitfield for Whitfield's entire congressional career.
And he held the reins. We entrusted him to push through a whole number of different pieces of legislation.
We all recognize that we have a lot of challenges, and we can't meet those challenges unless we work together to meet them. And we're going to continue to provide an alternative view of this administration, particularly in the area of energy, where we think that there are serious disagreements and with dire consequences that are possible.
He ran the committee with a straightforward attitude. We say, hey, let's get it done, let's work together, set politics aside and do what's best for the energy community. So he's going to be missed.
And with that, that will conclude today's hearing. Thank you.
He was so good about reaching out to all his colleagues to make sure that they understood what was going on with the agenda, and he took in information from everybody.
Jim Matheson served alongside Whitfield in Congress and in 2016 became president of the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association.
He became a great advocate for the electric co-op community because he understood the importance of the electric co-ops to his own constituents. It's a great example of how our grassroots network works across the country.
One of the real joys I've had in Congress is working with rural electric co-ops who provide such a valuable service around the country, and they're certainly very strong in Kentucky. And I've always enjoyed it because they have their hands on the pulse of the people. They understand issues even outside the issues related to energy production.
Ed Whitfield has been a champion for the people of the 1st Congressional District of Kentucky and also all of the people of the Commonwealth because he's fought for low-cost electricity and he's fought for our coal industry. And there's probably no better reputation that one can earn in the Congress than to be a fighter from the state from which you hail. And that's Ed Whitfield.
We had so many hearings on it and elevated the issue that I think that's one reason you had 27 states file a lawsuit against the Clean Power Plan. So that's the role of Congress is, yeah, you want to be proactive, you want to pass legislation, but you also have oversight responsibility of the executive branch.
being reasonable, not just doing, ignoring them, but to be very reasonable with the environmental regulations. So he's very knowledgeable about the industry and understands the industry and the impact that it has not only on the industry, but on all the individuals in the state of Kentucky.
Essential as we move forward to produce cleaner energy, that we balance the need of cleaner energy versus the need of protecting jobs in the U.S. and keeping the U.S. competitive in the global marketplace.
Ed Whitfield has meant stability for Penny Rile Electric. He's meant stability for the cooperative program, and he's always been a strong ally for the cooperative program in Kentucky.
Penny Rile Electric Cooperative President Greg Grissom points to Whitfield bucking his own party leaders to oppose energy deregulation in the 1990s.
Because it threatened our existence, it threatened our grassroots fundamental values, and Congressman Whitfield recognized that early on and was an ally from start to finish.
Whitfield's independence from the party line became especially evident while he was traveling the district one weekend in 2008. His district director, Michael Pape, was in the car with him when Vice President Dick Cheney phoned to lobby the congressman.
The vice president asked him to vote for the bailout bill, and he said, Mr. Vice President, he said, I've talked to economists around the country, I've talked with bankers, small-town bankers in my district, and many other people in business, and they feel that this move that you're asking me to vote for is not in the best interest of the country. And I have to tell you, if you're asking me today, my answer to you is that you cannot count on me to vote for that bill, because I don't think it's the right thing to do.
Congressman Whitfield is a leader, standing up to support small business, cut government regulation, expand domestic energy production.
Number one, small business. Obviously, that's where we're sitting as a small business. We're celebrating our 55th year. And Ed recognizes the importance in the American economy and many other aspects of American life, what role small business plays, and works so hard as an advocate and to help small business stay healthy and be able to be profitable and to create all the jobs that we create and have good jobs and have good paying jobs.
To think that a company like this would be taking money from groups like this is sort of disturbing.
Whitfield's tenacity on Capitol Hill earned both the respect of his peers and practical implications for the voters back home. Whitfield followed up on citizens' concerns that the federal government was going to commercially develop the land between the lakes, upsetting the heirs of farmers who had been kicked off the land. Whitfield and Senator Mitch McConnell crafted legislation to designate the area as a national forest.
And it's been tremendous. We reintroduced elk. There are eagles there. There are buffalo and bison are there. Large wildlife is there. And horseback riding, camping.
Whitfield and McConnell also teamed up on legislation to help victims of toxic contamination at the Paducah Gaseous Diffusion Plant, a World War II weapons manufacturing facility later used to enrich uranium.
A lot of these people were exposed, they were coming down with these cancers, and the government was saying we're not responsible, and many of them did not have adequate health coverage.
Working with McConnell and a coalition of health groups, Whitfield helped establish a workers' compensation program for Department of Energy workers across the country, with Paducah as its shining example.
And it made a tremendous difference in the lives of a lot of people. I mean, it's paid out $250 million in health benefits. But the government does have a responsibility to take care of people and provide their coverage for them if they're going to expose them to things and not make them aware of it.
His conversations with commanding generals of the 101st Airborne Division at Fort Campbell prompted Whitfield to co-found the United States Turkish Caucus in Congress, supporting the critical role of Turkey as NATO's only Muslim nation.
So he worked with us greatly on our Fort Campbell relationship. We were in limbo about losing a large part of the base, a part of the soldiers on base. And we had a strong battle to keep that base alive and keep it intact. He was a strong force, and he was in a position that he could be a strong force with that.
Whitfield's legislative record includes a prescription drug monitoring system, the first Medicare prescription drug benefit plan for seniors, and introducing the first bill to pass the House to abolish the slaughter of horses in America.
I have been committed to the protection of animals. I mean, obviously I understand they are animals, but I think they deserve humane treatment.
A passion shared by Whitfield's wife, Connie.
So Connie worked very hard with me throughout the whole time, and she was former Assistant Secretary of Interior and was the director of the Export-Import Bank. She's been instrumental and very much involved.
The first day I encountered him, the first time we had a conversation, from that point until he retired from Congress, Congressman Whitfield, Ed Whitfield, is the same person. In his values, in his persona. People sometimes say, don't get into politics because it'll change you. You won't be the same person once you come out. The one thing I've noticed about Ed Whitfield is he's the same person, with more wisdom now, but the same person, the same values, the same type of person that said I could make a difference when he went into office and when he came out of office.
Yeah, I would like to thank the constituents of the 1st District of Kentucky for giving me the opportunity to represent them in the U.S. Congress. It's been a great honor. You can't represent people without being involved in their day-to-day struggles with the issues that they deal with. And I don't think anybody can serve in public life without becoming a little bit more sensitive to the needs of people. So I want to thank them for their support, their dedication, and their commitment, and allowing me to represent them.
The Kentucky Association of Electric Cooperatives 2016 Distinguished Rural Kentuckian, Congressman Ed Whitfield.